Vivid verses.
The Bristol and Hayes conference room on the 42nd floor offered a panoramic view of Portland's west side, where the city gave way to rolling hills dotted with estates I'd helped develop over the last 2 decades. Marcus Whitaker, my attorney, was walking me through the final details of the Riverside Commons acquisition, a $340 million mixed-use project that would reshape the waterfront. The environmental impact study came back clean, Marcus said, sliding the folder across the mahogany table. We're looking at breaking ground in April. I nodded, scanning the executive summary. The numbers aligned perfectly with my initial projections from 18 months ago. Good. Let's move the timeline up. I want foundations poured before summer. That's aggressive. That's necessary. The market won't wait, and neither will I. Marcus smiled. He learned over 15 years that when I committed to a timeline, I'd already calculated every variable. I didn't make promises I couldn't keep, and I didn't leave room for failure. My phone buzzed. Vanessa. I glanced at the message. Don't forget tonight. 7 p.m. Wear the Navy suit. Tonight. Her 39th birthday dinner at Meridian, the French restaurant she'd been talking about for months. I made the reservation 6 weeks ago, arranged for the sommelier to prepare a custom wine pairing, and had a vintage Cartier bracelet waiting in my jacket pocket. Art Deco, platinum, and diamonds, the style she'd admired in a magazine last winter. I typed back, already planned. See you there. Everything good? Marcus asked. Fine. Just a reminder about dinner tonight. He gathered his papers. How's Vanessa doing? She's well, I said automatically. It was the answer I always gave, the social lubricant that kept conversations moving. The truth was more complicated, but I learned long ago that most people asking, "How's your wife?" weren't actually interested in nuance. I noticed a shift about 2 years ago. Small things at first. The way she'd stiffen slightly when I touched her shoulder, the microsecond delay before she returned my kisses, the careful choreography she employed to avoid being in the same room with me unless necessary. She'd become a master of strategic positioning, always with a counter between us, always with an exit route planned. I'm not stupid. I built an empire by reading people, by understanding what they wanted versus what they said, by identifying patterns in chaos. But I also understood investment theory. Sometimes you put capital into a failing venture because the cost of abandonment exceeds the cost of maintenance. Our marriage had become that kind of portfolio position. We had 16 years invested. No children. Vanessa had decided early on that motherhood didn't appeal to her, and I'd accepted that. We had a beautiful home in the Pearl District, a social circle that included some of Portland's most influential families, and a routine that functioned smoothly as long as I didn't examine it too closely. And there was her family. Her brother Cameron had cycled through 4 different startup ventures in the last decade, each one funded through the Carmichael Family Trust, a revocable living trust I'd established shortly after marrying Vanessa. The trust held the deed to their parents' house in Laurelhest, Cameron's office space in the Alberta Arts District, the seed capital for his various businesses, and the 529 education funds I'd set up for his 3 kids. Generous? Perhaps. Strategic? Absolutely. The Carmichaels had welcomed me into their family when I was a nobody who'd clawed his way up from nothing. Vanessa's father had given me my first real advice about commercial real estate, had introduced me to the right people, had treated me like the son he never had. When he died 8 years ago, I made sure the family would never want for anything. The trust ensured that Vanessa's mother could live in comfort, that Cameron's entrepreneurial dreams could continue, that the grandchildren would have education secured. It was also, though I never said it aloud, a form of insurance. As long as I was funding their lifestyle, the Carmichaels had a vested interest in keeping Vanessa happy in our marriage. But insurance policies have terms and conditions. Most people don't read the fine print. I arrived at Meridian 15 minutes early. The maitre d', Philippe, greeted me with the warmth reserved for regular high tippers. "Mr. Thorne, wonderful to see you. Your table is ready." The corner booth, private, but with a view of the open kitchen. I'd requested it specifically. Vanessa liked to watch the culinary theater, the synchronized dance of chefs working the line. I ordered a Hendrick's martini, very dry, and reviewed the tasting menu on my phone. Philippe had prepared it according to my specifications. Courses that would showcase the restaurant's strengths while accommodating Vanessa's preferences. No shellfish, nothing too heavy, a progression that built toward the butter-poached lobster she loved. Vanessa arrived at 7:18. 18 minutes late wasn't unusual. She'd cultivated a casual relationship with punctuality over the years. What caught my attention was her expression as she approached the table. Not the pleased anticipation of someone about to enjoy a birthday dinner, but something harder. Resolved. She was wearing the Marchesa dress I'd bought her last month, midnight blue with delicate beading along the shoulders. Her dark hair was up, exposing the curve of her neck. Objectively, she was stunning. Subjectively, she looked at me the way one might look at a piece of furniture that needed replacing. "Happy birthday," I said, standing to pull out her chair. "Thank you." She sat without making eye contact, immediately reaching for the wine list. I settled back into my seat, watching her. Over 16 years, I'd learned to read the micro-signals. The tightness around her eyes suggested she'd been crying recently. The way she held her shoulders, drawn back and squared, indicated she'd prepared for confrontation. The absence of her wedding ring, usually on her left hand, now moved to her right, was perhaps the most telling detail. Something had shifted. This wasn't just the ongoing drift of the last 2 years. This was a decision point. "I ordered the tasting menu," I said. "But if you'd prefer something else." "The tasting menu is fine." Philippe appeared with champagne, a vintage Dom Perignon I'd selected. He poured with flourish, wished Vanessa a happy birthday, and retreated. She didn't touch her glass. "Vanessa," I said quietly, "what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Why would anything be wrong? The edge in her voice was new. Usually, she maintained a veneer of pleasant detachment. This was different. This was anger looking for a target. "You seem upset." "I'm not upset, Nathan. I'm fine." Everything's always fine in your perfect little world, isn't it? There it was. The resentment finally breaking surface. I took a sip of champagne, buying myself a moment to analyze. The mention of your perfect little world suggested she felt excluded from something. The sarcasm indicated she'd been rehearsing this, building toward it. "Talk to me," I said. "What's really going on?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You really don't see it, do you? You sit there in your expensive suit in the restaurant you picked with the menu you ordered, and you ask me what's wrong like you actually care about the answer." I set down my glass. "I do care about the answer." "No, you care about maintaining control. That's what you've always cared about. Control." She finally met my eyes, and what I saw there was pure contempt. "Do you know what Cameron said to me last week? He said I was lucky to have married someone so generous." "Lucky? Like I won some kind of lottery by becoming your wife." "Ah, Cameron." So this was about money, about power dynamics, about the invisible architecture of our life together. "Your brother runs 5 companies out of office space I provide," I said evenly. "His children's education is secured. Your mother lives in a house worth $2.3 million without paying property taxes or maintenance." I'd say generous is accurate. And there it is. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to an intense whisper. "You can't help yourself, can you? You have to remind me. You have to make sure I know that everything, the house, the cars, the lifestyle, my family's security, all of it comes from you. All of it depends on you. We're all just living in the Nathan Thorne empire, grateful for scraps from the emperor's table." I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't an argument about a birthday dinner. This was fundamental. This was about the entire structure of our marriage. That's not how I see it, I said carefully. Of course it isn't, because you're the one with the power. You get to define reality, and the rest of us just have to accept it. The first course arrived. Roasted beet salad with goat cheese and microgreens. Philippe described it enthusiastically, oblivious to the tension crackling across the table. We both waited until he left. Vanessa pushed her plate away. I can't do this anymore. Can't do what? Have dinner. Can't pretend. Her hands are shaking slightly. I can't pretend that I'm not suffocated by you. I can't pretend that I don't feel sick when you touch me. I can't pretend that this marriage is anything other than a prison I walked into 16 years ago and haven't figured out how to escape. The words landed with precision, each one calculated for maximum impact. I recognized the tactic. I'd used it myself in business negotiations. She was trying to provoke a reaction, to start a fight that would justify whatever decision she'd already made. I didn't give her one. Instead, I picked up my fork and tasted the beet salad. Excellent, as expected. The earthiness of the beets, perfectly balanced by the tangy goat cheese. You're not going to say anything? Vanessa's voice had risen slightly. A couple at a nearby table glanced over. I set down my fork. What would you like me to say? I just told you I find you physically disgusting, and you're going to sit there eating salad? You want me to argue with you? To get angry or defensive, or to beg you to reconsider? That's not going to happen. I met her eyes steadily. If you're disgusted by me, if this marriage feels like a prison, then we should end it. I'm not interested in keeping you somewhere you don't want to be. She blinked, clearly thrown. Whatever script she prepared in her mind, my response wasn't part of it. That's it? That's all you have to say? What else is there? You've been unhappy for years. I've known it, and I've pretended not to notice because it was easier than confronting the reality. You've been pretending you loved me, and I've been pretending that your pretending was enough. But if we're done pretending, then we're done. I pulled the Cartier box from my jacket pocket and set it on the table between us. Happy birthday, Vanessa. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I stood, placed $300 bills next to my untouched champagne, enough to cover the entire tasting menu and a generous tip, and walked out of Meridian without looking back. The drive back to the Pearl District took 12 minutes. I used the time to think. 16 years. I met Vanessa at a charity auction when I was 31 and just started to see real returns on my first development projects. She was volunteering, managing the silent auction tables with the kind of effortless grace that comes from growing up in comfort. She laughed easily, moved through the crowd like she belonged everywhere, and when I introduced myself, she looked at me with genuine interest. We dated for 18 months. I thought I was in love. Maybe I was in love with the idea of belonging to her world, of proving that a kid who grew up in Section 8 housing in Tacoma could build something substantial enough to attract someone like Vanessa Carmichael. The prenup had been my lawyer's idea. Protect yourself, Marcus had said. You're accumulating assets. She's not. Make sure everything's clean. I presented it to Vanessa 3 weeks before the wedding. She'd been angry, hurt that I didn't trust her, but her father had sat her down and explained it. Nathan's smart, he told her. This is what smart people do. It doesn't mean he loves you less. She'd signed it. The prenup was ironclad. In the event of divorce, all assets acquired before and during the marriage remained with their original owner. No alimony. No division of property. What I built, I kept. At the time, I thought it was just prudent business sense. Now, sitting in my car outside our building, I realized it was the smartest decision I'd ever made. I took the elevator to the penthouse. The space was exactly as I designed it 5 years ago. Clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that cost more than most people's cars, but was actually comfortable. Vanessa had contributed some decorative touches, throw pillows, a few pieces of art, but the bones of the place were all mine. I poured myself a scotch, Macallan 25, $3,500 bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. This seemed appropriately special. The end of my marriage deserved top-shelf liquor. My phone buzzed. Cameron. I stared at it for a moment, then answered. Cameron. Nathan. Hey, man. I need to talk to you about something. You got a minute? His voice had that forced casualness that meant he wanted something. Usually money. What's up? So, weird thing happened today. I want to grab lunch, right? And my card got declined. So, I tried the other card, the titanium one you set up for business expenses. Also declined. I called the bank, and they said the account was closed. But that doesn't make sense because the account wasn't closed, I said. The trust was revoked. Silence on the other end. Then what? The Carmichael Family Trust. I revoked it this evening. All accounts associated with it are now frozen pending final disbursement. I don't understand. Why would you do that? I took a sip of scotch, letting him sweat. Because the trust was established for the benefit of my wife and her family. As of tonight, I'm no longer married to your sister. Therefore, the trust serves no purpose. But you can't just... Nathan, I have payroll due on Friday. I have 3 kids in private school. Mom's house, your mother's house, is owned by the trust, which means it reverts to the grantor. That's me. I'll be arranging for the property to be listed next week. I'm sure your mother can find a nice condo somewhere more affordable. This is insane. You can't just pull the rug out from under my entire family because you had a fight with Vanessa. I'm not pulling any rugs, Cameron. I'm simply terminating a voluntary financial arrangement that no longer serves its intended purpose. Everything in that trust was a gift, not an entitlement. Gifts can be revoked. The kids' college funds were never legal trust funds. They were 529 accounts I funded as the contributor. I can change the beneficiaries at any time, which I'll be doing. I could hear his breathing, fast and shallow. Panic. Nathan, please. I'm begging you. Don't do this. Whatever happened between you and Vanessa, that's between you two. Don't punish the rest of us. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply removing my support from people who are no longer my family. You're a smart guy, Cameron. You've had 4 different startups. I'm sure you'll figure something out. 4 startups that all failed. The only reason I'm still in business is because you kept funding. He stopped himself, realizing what he was admitting. Exactly, I said quietly. And now that funding has ended, I suggest you call your sister. She's the one who decided she found me disgusting. She's the one who wanted out. These are simply the consequences of that decision. You're really going to destroy my entire life over this. I built your entire life, Cameron. The office space for Venture Path? I own the building. The lease was month to month, and I terminated it this afternoon. You have 30 days to vacate. The seed capital for your current startup? That was a revocable contribution from the trust. It's being recalled. Your kids' tuition? I was paying that directly. I've informed Westbrook Academy that the payments will stop at the end of this semester. Holy shit. His voice was barely a whisper. You planned this. No. I built a structure that protected my assets while being generous to my wife's family. That structure had terms. Those terms are no longer being met. This isn't revenge, Cameron. This is contract law. Vanessa needs to call you. She needs to fix this. Vanessa doesn't need to do anything. She made her position clear. I accepted it. What happens next is up to her, but it won't change the fundamental reality. We're done. I hung up before he could respond. The next morning, I woke to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I ignored all of them and went for my usual 6-mile run through Waterfront Park. The May morning was crisp, the Willamette River reflecting clouds and bridges in perfect symmetry. Running had always been my meditation, the time when I processed complex problems. This morning's problem was actually quite simple. Vanessa had believed that the financial infrastructure supporting her family was permanent, that her marriage to me had created irrevocable obligations. She'd forgotten, or perhaps never fully understood, that everything was built on revocable instruments. A revocable living trust is an elegant tool. It allows the grantor to maintain complete control while appearing to be generous. Assets in the trust are used for the benefit of beneficiaries, but the grantor can modify or terminate the trust at any time. I'd structured the Carmichael Family Trust specifically this way because I'd learned early in my career that permanent obligations are dangerous. I'd never told Vanessa the details. She'd signed the trust documents when we established it, but I doubt she read them carefully. She saw the results, her family's security, and assumed that security was permanent. It wasn't. The office space Cameron used? Leased month to month through a holding company I controlled. The seed capital for his ventures? Structured as loans from the trust, callable at any time. The 529 accounts for his kids? I was the account owner and contributor. I could change beneficiaries or withdraw funds for any reason. Vanessa's mother's house was the only truly complicated piece. The property was worth about $2.3 million in the current market, and evicting a widow would look terrible. But the trust documents were clear. The property was held in trust for the benefit of the grantor's mother-in-law during the continuation of the grantor's marriage to Vanessa Carmichael Thorne. The marriage was over. The trust terms were no longer being met. The property reverted to me. I'd give her mother a generous timeline, 6 months, maybe, to relocate. I wasn't cruel, but I wasn't going to maintain a $2.3 million asset with $18,000 annual property taxes for someone who was no longer family. By the time I returned to the penthouse, my phone had accumulated another dozen missed calls. I made coffee, scrambled eggs, and finally checked the messages. Vanessa, we need to talk. Call me. Vanessa, Nathan, please pick up. Vanessa, this is insane. You can't just destroy my family. Vanessa, Cameron is having a panic attack. Vanessa, I didn't mean what I said last night. Vanessa, please can we just talk about this like adults? Her mother, Nathan dear, there must be some misunderstanding. Please call me. Cameron, my lawyer says you can't do this. Cameron, call me back right now. Cameron, you're going to regret this. I deleted them all except Cameron's last message. Threats were interesting. They suggested he'd moved past panic into anger, which meant he was stupid enough to escalate. I called Marcus instead. I was wondering when I'd hear from you, he said by way of greeting. I got a very angry call from Cameron Carmichael's attorney this morning. Something about improper trust termination. The trust was properly terminated according to its own terms. He's welcome to review the documents. He claims you're using the trust as leverage to force Vanessa back into the marriage. That's not possible. I can't force anyone into anything. I simply removed financial support from people who are no longer family. The trust was established for the benefit of my wife's family. I'm no longer going to have a wife. Nathan, Marcus's tone shifted, became more serious. I need to ask, is this what you really want? Because once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. The Carmichaels will lawyer up. They'll make this ugly, and they'll try to paint you as a vindictive ex-husband. Let them try. Everything I did was legal and properly documented. The prenup is ironclad. The trust documents are clear. I've broken no contracts and made no promises I'm not keeping. If they want to fight, they'll lose. Okay, but emotionally, are you sure? I thought about Vanessa's face last night, the contempt in her eyes when she called me disgusting. 16 years, I said. I thought she loved me. I thought I was building something permanent. But I was just useful. A wallet with a wedding ring. And the moment she didn't need to pretend anymore, She couldn't even make it through a birthday dinner without telling me how repulsive she finds me. So yes, Marcus, I'm sure. All right then. I'll prepare the divorce filing. Oregon's a no-fault state, so this should be straightforward. With the prenup, we're looking at a clean separation. I'll make sure everything's documented properly. Do it today. I want papers filed by end of week. The call came at 2:47 p.m. Vanessa, from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Nathan. Her voice was steady, controlled. She'd had time to prepare. We need to meet. In person. Why? Because we're married. Because we can't just throw away 16 years without at least having a conversation. We had a conversation last night. You told me you found me disgusting and that our marriage was a prison. I accepted that. There's nothing more to discuss. I was upset. I said things I didn't mean. No, you said things you finally meant. There's a difference. Silence. Then fine. You want to play it this way? I'll see you in court. My lawyer says the prenup might not hold up. We'll go after the business, the properties, everything. You can't just destroy my family and expect. Your family destroyed themselves? I interrupted. Cameron's startups failed because he's bad at business. Your mother's living beyond her means in a house she can't afford. I was subsidizing all of it out of generosity, not obligation. That subsidy has ended. So this is revenge. No, this is economics. I don't invest in failing ventures, and I don't maintain expensive overhead for people who provide no value. You taught me that last night when you made it clear exactly how much value you place on our marriage. I want to meet. Today, 5 o'clock at the house. That's not your house, Vanessa. It's my house. You're welcome to collect your personal belongings, but I'd prefer if you did it with advance notice. It's the marital home. I have every right to be there. Actually, you don't. Check the deed. The property is held in my name, purchased before our marriage with funds that predate our relationship. The prenup specifies that it remains my separate property. You've been living there as my guest. Another silence, longer this time. I could almost hear her recalculating. Nathan, please. Can we just talk? Without the legal posturing, without the threats. Just us. There's no us anymore. You made that clear. I made a mistake. I was angry about something Cameron said, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry. Interesting. Cameron said something that set her off, and she redirected that anger at me during dinner, which meant this wasn't really about our marriage at all. It was about her brother's endless financial needs and her resentment at being trapped between his expectations and my wallet. What did Cameron say? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. She exhaled slowly. He asked me to ask you for more seed money. Another $200,000 for Venture Path. I told him no, that I wasn't going to ask you for more money for his failing business. And he said I was being selfish, that you were my husband and it was my job to manage you. Manage me. His words, not mine. But it made me realize that's all I am to everyone. I'm Nathan Thorne's wife. I'm the person who's supposed to keep you happy so the money keeps flowing. I'm not a person. I'm a function. There was genuine pain in her voice. For a moment, I almost felt sympathy. So you decided to blow up our marriage instead of setting boundaries with your brother. I decided I couldn't breathe anymore. Every time Cameron calls, every time my mother mentions the house or the kids' tuition, I feel like I'm drowning in obligations I never asked for. And you're always so calm, so controlled, so perfect. You never fight back. You never get angry. You just sit there being reasonable while everyone around you falls apart. You wanted me to get angry last night. That's why you said what you said. You wanted to provoke a reaction. Yes, I wanted you to feel something. I wanted proof that you're human, that I matter to you as more than just an asset to manage. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Vanessa, you've spent 16 years avoiding me. You've choreographed our entire life to minimize contact. You flinch when I touch you. And now you're upset that I didn't fight for a relationship you clearly don't want. I wanted you to care enough to fight. I care enough to let you go. If that's not the response you wanted, I'm sorry. But I'm not going to beg you to stay in a marriage where you find my physical presence disgusting. I have more self-respect than that. What about the prenup? My lawyer says. Your lawyer is feeding you false hope. The prenup is valid. Oregon courts uphold properly executed prenuptial agreements, and ours was reviewed by independent counsel, signed with full disclosure, and meets every legal requirement. You're not getting half my assets, Vanessa. You're not getting alimony. You're getting exactly what we agreed to 16 years ago. Nothing. You're really going to leave me with nothing. You'll leave with everything you came into the marriage with. That's not nothing. It's just not enough to maintain the lifestyle you've grown accustomed to. I can't believe you're this cold. I'm not cold. I'm logical. You want it out. I'm giving you out. The cost of that freedom is the end of my financial support for you and your family. That's not punishment. That's cause and effect. She hung up without saying goodbye. Marcus filed the divorce papers on Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, I received a letter from Cameron's attorney threatening legal action for fraudulent trust termination and financial elder abuse regarding Vanessa's mother. I forwarded it to Marcus with a single-line email. Please destroy him. Marcus called 20 minutes later, laughing. This is the worst legal threat I've seen in 15 years of practice. He's claiming elder abuse because you're terminating a trust? The woman is 64, healthy, and owns no portion of the property in question. There's no abuse. There's not even a cognizable legal theory. So we're good. We're bulletproof. I sent a response explaining that all trust actions were performed in accordance with the trust documents, that no fiduciary duty exists because you're the grantor and not the trustee of someone else's assets, and that any further frivolous legal threats will result in a countersuit for harassment. That should shut them up. Good. What's the timeline on the divorce? Oregon requires a 90-day waiting period from filing to finalization. Given that there's no property to divide and no custody issues, we should have a decree in about 4 months. Vanessa's attorney might try to contest the prenup, but it won't go anywhere. Keep me updated. That weekend, I received a surprise visitor. Vanessa's mother, Patricia, showed up at the building's front desk Saturday morning asking to see me. I almost said no, but Patricia had never been unkind to me, had never treated me like a wallet, and I respected her enough to at least hear her out. She looked older than the last time I'd seen her. Stress, probably. The realization that her comfortable life was ending. Nathan. She sat across from me in the living room, hands folded in her lap. Thank you for seeing me. Of course, Patricia. Would you like coffee? No, thank you. I won't take much of your time. She took a breath. I wanted to apologize. That surprised me. For what? For not seeing what was happening. For taking your generosity for granted. For not teaching my children better. You didn't do anything wrong. I raised a son who thinks he's entitled to other people's money. I raised a daughter who doesn't understand the difference between partnership and dependency. That's not nothing. She met my eyes, and I saw genuine remorse there. When my husband died, I was lost. The house, the finances, everything felt impossible. You stepped in and you handled it. You made sure I didn't have to worry about anything. I was so grateful. You don't need to. Let me finish, please. She smiled sadly. I was grateful, but I also got comfortable. I stopped thinking about what I was depending on. I stopped asking questions. I just accepted that this was how things were, that you would always take care of us. I was happy to help. I know, and that's what makes this worse. You were good to us, incredibly good, and I never thought about what it must be like for you. To be married to someone who resents you for your generosity. To support a family who sees you as an obligation rather than a person. I didn't know what to say to that. Vanessa called me yesterday. Patricia continued. She was hysterical, saying you were destroying the family, that you were being vindictive, that you were punishing her for speaking her truth. She paused. I asked her what truth she spoke. She told me what she said to you at dinner. I see. And I told her that she was a fool. Patricia's voice was firm. You gave her 16 years. You supported her family. You never asked for anything except that she be your wife, and she couldn't even manage that with grace. She doesn't get to be surprised that there are consequences. I'm not trying to punish her. I know. You're just stepping back, removing your support. It feels the same to us, though. The life we've been living disappears, and it's terrifying. What will you do? About the house? Sell it, I suppose. Downsize. I should have done it years ago. Honestly, the property taxes alone are absurd, and I rattle around in that big place by myself. I've been looking at condos in Selwood. There are some nice places, much more appropriate for a widow. I can give you time. 6 months, maybe a year. That's generous of you, but no. If I'm going to do this, I should do it now. Rip the bandage off. She stood. I won't take up any more of your time. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in the Carmichael family is oblivious to what you did for us. And I'm sorry that Vanessa couldn't appreciate the man she married. I walked her to the door. Before she left, she turned back. For what it's worth, Nathan, I think my daughter is making the biggest mistake of her life. But that's her mistake to make. I hope you find someone who deserves you. After she left, I sat in the quiet of my penthouse and felt something I hadn't expected, grief. Not for the marriage, that had been dying for years, but for the family I'd thought I was building. For the idea that generosity and love could create something permanent. I've been wrong. You can't build relationships the way you build real estate. You can't draw up plans and execute them perfectly and expect human hearts to follow structural engineering. People are messy. They're unpredictable. They resent the very things they depend on, and they destroy what they can't control. I poured myself another scotch and looked out over the city I'd helped build. Tomorrow, I get back to work. There was the Riverside Commons project to manage, a new acquisition in Seattle to review, a dozen other deals in various stages of development. The work never stopped. The work never disappointed. The work never called me disgusting. 3 weeks after filing for divorce, I received a call from an unknown Seattle number. Mr. Thorne? This is Rebecca Strand. I'm an attorney representing Cameron Carmichael. I have an attorney, Ms. Strand. Please direct all communication through him. This isn't about the divorce. This is about Venture Path Solutions and what Mr. Carmichael believes is an unlawful seizure of company assets. I almost laughed. Venture Path Solutions has no assets. It's a failing startup with no revenue, no product, and no prospects. What exactly am I supposed to have seized? The seed capital provided through the Carmichael Family Trust. Mr. Carmichael maintains that those funds were a gift, not a loan, and cannot be recalled. The trust documents specify that all funds disbursed for business ventures are structured as interest-free loans, callable at the grantor's discretion. I'm calling them. Mr. Carmichael has 30 days to repay $620,000, or I'll file for recovery. He doesn't have $620,000. Then he should file for bankruptcy. That's not my problem. Mr. Thorne, I understand you're going through a difficult divorce, but destroying your brother-in-law's business. He was never my brother-in-law. He was my wife's brother. I'm no longer married. Therefore, he's nothing to me, and his business destroyed itself through incompetence and poor management. I'm simply declining to continue subsidizing failure. We'll fight the trust termination. You'll lose. The trust documents are clear. They were drafted by one of the best estate planning attorneys in Oregon, and they've been reviewed by 3 different legal teams. You have no case, Ms. Strand. You're just billing Cameron for false hope. He has children who will lose their college funds because you're being vindictive. Those children have parents. Parents who should have planned for their education instead of relying on a relative's generosity. I'm not vindictive, Miss Strand. I'm just done being charitable to people who don't appreciate it. I hung up and blocked the number. That night, I had dinner with Marcus at Bastille, a small French bistro in the Pearl District. He brought the finalized divorce documents. Vanessa's attorney is still making noise about contesting the prenup, he said, but it's posturing. They know they don't have a case. I expect her to sign within the month. Good. How are you holding up? I consider the question. Honestly, I feel lighter. Like I've been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there until I put it down. No regrets, only that I didn't see the reality sooner. I wasted 16 years pretending we had something we didn't. Marcus nodded. For what it's worth, I never liked her. She always seemed performative, like she was playing a role rather than living a life. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? Probably not. I'd been too invested in the idea of what I thought I was building. The Riverside Commons project is moving forward, I said, changing the subject. We break ground in June. I want you to review the contractor agreements. Already on my calendar. He paused. You know, Nathan, most people going through a divorce would take some time off. Process things. Maybe talk to a therapist. I'm not most people. No, you're definitely not. He raised his glass. To new beginnings? To better architecture, I countered. In all aspects of life. We drank to that. The divorce finalized on August 23rd, 93 days from filing to decree, exactly as Marcus predicted. Vanessa signed without contest after her attorney finally convinced her that fighting the prenup would only waste money she didn't have. She moved to Seattle, into an apartment paid for by a new boyfriend she'd met through Cameron. I heard through mutual friends that she was working as an event coordinator for a tech company. The irony of her finally getting a job after the marriage ended wasn't lost on me. Cameron's startup collapsed in September. He filed for bankruptcy in October and moved his family to Boise, where his wife had relatives and the cost of living was lower. I heard he was working in sales for a software company. The regular paycheck was probably good for him. Patricia sold the Laurelhurst house for $2.4 million and bought a condo in Selwood for $680,000. She sent me a thank you note with a photo of her new place, small but elegant. She looked happy. I threw myself into work. The Riverside Commons project opened in December to significant acclaim. The mixed-use development transformed a decaying industrial waterfront into a vibrant community hub, with retail, residential, and public spaces that felt both modern and welcoming. A local journalist called it Nathan Thorne's masterpiece, which was flattering if not entirely accurate. It was just good architecture, good planning, and good execution. The fundamentals done right. In January, I met someone. Her name was Claire, and she was a structural engineer on a hospital project I was consulting on. She was brilliant, funny, and had absolutely no interest in my money. On our third date, she insisted on paying for dinner because you bought last time, and I believe in equality. I think I fell in love with her right then. We took it slow. I was upfront about the divorce, about the trust debacle, about the wreckage of my marriage. She listened without judgment. It sounds like you built your entire life around someone who never appreciated the foundation you provided, she said. That's not your failure. That's hers. I should have seen it sooner. Maybe. Or maybe you saw it and hoped you were wrong. Hope isn't a character flaw, Nathan. It's just sometimes misplaced. 6 months later, we moved in together to a new place, one we chose together. She insisted on paying half the rent, even though I owned the building. Partnership, she said firmly. Equal investment, equal ownership of the space we share. I never told her that her insistence on equality was worth more to me than any financial contribution. 1 year after signing the divorce papers, I receive an email from Vanessa. The subject line read, "I'm sorry." The message was short. "Nathan, I know this is late, and I know you probably don't care, but I needed to say it. I'm sorry. You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved honesty and appreciation and love that wasn't conditional on what you could provide. I've been working with a therapist, trying to understand why I sabotaged something good. She says I was scared of dependency, but that I created dependency anyway by refusing to build anything of my own. I wanted the security you provided, but I resented needing it. That resentment poisoned everything. You were good to me. You were good to my family. We took advantage of that goodness, and we paid the price. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I lost. I hope you're happy. I hope you found someone who appreciates you the way I should have." I read it twice, then archived it without responding. There was nothing to say. She was right. She did see it now. But now was too late. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even bitter. I was just done. That night, Claire and I cooked dinner together in our kitchen. She was telling me about a problem with the load calculations on the hospital's third floor, gesturing with a wooden spoon as she talked about lateral force resistance. I watched her, this brilliant woman who paid her own way and challenged my ideas and made me laugh, and I realized something. Vanessa hadn't destroyed what I built. She just revealed that it was built on sand. But now I was building on bedrock. Partnership instead of patronage. Equality instead of obligation. A foundation that could support something real. "You're staring at me," Claire said, smiling. "I'm admiring the architecture," I replied. She threw a dish towel at my head. I caught it, grinning. For the first time in 16 years, I was home.
Thanks for listening.